One of the easier ways to create a layout with a wireframe is to use what we call the 960 grid system. And basically, you can read a little bit more at how that is set up with at 960.gs. Basically, it talks about dividing up your page in certain units, and it's based on a width of 960 pixels. And it will also go in and divide up your page into basically 12 or 16 columns, and then you can go in and place boxes within those areas. Um, it really helps you to lay out your columns really in a nice order. And what you do when you go to 960.gs, you click on this big old download button, and it's going to download a zip folder. Now, when you look at the zip folder, it's going to have a variety of different examples here. And let me go back here in a second. Here's the folder itself, and what's going on here is it automatically has a variety of templates and extra information in here. So I'm going to go to templates here, and depending on what you're working with, here's an Illustrator template, here's a Photoshop template, and these are just different files. It depends on what type of columns you want, how many columns you want. And when you open this up, what happens is in Photoshop, like in this regards, and same thing in Illustrator, it's going to put all these nice little guides in, and it does some color coding so that way you can see these columns. So then what you can do is, with the guides in place, then all you have to do is create your box, and it's going to snap to the guides itself, which is great on that part. So if we take our rectangle tool, and let me have a black stroke here, and do no fill. Change this to 1 point. And when I come in here, you're going to see it snaps in nicely with what we're doing here. And what you're doing with this is going to help you line things up nicely. It's going to basically balance out your page in the right order. So most of the time what will happen is most people just go in and create a box for their left side navigation bar, and they just choose whatever size. But what size is it? With 960 grid, you know what physical size it is because it's taking up so many units per column. So we're not, you just don't go in and choose something in between. You're going to go in and choose up to a certain guide, and then I'll work with it that way. So the key here, and especially in Photoshop or Illustrator, to help you line things up, is just use ruler guides, because ruler guides are an essential piece for lining things up and getting the right size on that aspect. So back here in the 960 grid, it talks about a little bit more about what it is. Definitely take a look at it because they do have some different examples, and when you use the 960 grid here, you're basically going to utilize the balance and the flow a little bit better for that purpose. So as we see here, I just clicked on one of the examples, and what they're doing here is they're showing a 24 column grid, and here, because of if you're just doing the first column only, it's worth 30 pixels. So here, if you do the 2 columns, it's worth 70. Now 30 plus 30 is not 70. You got to include the space in between. So there's a little space in between. That's about, it looks like they're adding 10 pixels of space. So when you do this, then your measurements become easier to calculate. So most of the time, like for example, the left side, you have a navigation bar of 110 or 150. That's about the right size that you'll use. And that means then your other section over on the right would be 830 or 790. So if you know the actual widths, it's going to make your life easier, and this is where the 960 grid comes in play. So something to check out, and I really encourage it because as you start going into other classes, really becomes an important aspect of web design.